Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first session of the Spring 2026 Innovate US Workshop Series. Happy New Year. As we wait for other people to come in out of the waiting room, please feel free to rename yourself by right-clicking on your own square. This is a peer-to-peer learning community. Our speakers and one another, we love to know who's here, whether it's the state you come from, the city, the agency. Feel free to rename yourself. Again, right-clicking on your own square, or in the upper right-hand corner, you'll find three dots, which brings up a menu that will allow you to add an affiliation or anything else that you choose. Again, this is peer-to-peer learning. We have a lot of experts in the audience, as well as profiled here, spotlighted on the screen. So please feel free to use the chat to introduce yourselves, to share your own answers to questions and comments on the discussion. As we go along, though, if you have questions for the panel, please use the Q&A button, which you will find at the bottom of your screen. It should be, for me, it's the fifth button from the right, but we will also put instructions in the chat about where to find the Q&A button. You can also use the CC button at the bottom if you would like captions, as well as if you would like translation, and we will put instructions again for all of that. As you're coming in, please make sure to mute yourself. We will also help with that so that we can hear one another clearly. But I think without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started, because we love to start on time and end on time. And as part of that, we're going to just put up a quick survey to ask, have you and everyone else here have an opportunity to learn why we are here and what we are hoping to learn from one another. So we'll put that up just for a moment as we finish letting people in out of the waiting room. And without any further ado then, unless there are any final logistical announcements, Agata, have I forgotten anything?
Everything perfect. We can start whenever you're ready.
Everything is perfect in the best of all possible worlds. Fantastic. Thank you again. If you have technical questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat and we'll be happy to answer them there. Questions about transcription, translation, multilingual capacity, and then please continue to introduce yourselves in the chat and the Q&A for questions. With that, let me pass it over to the host and moderator for today's session to introduce herself and our fantastic panel of speakers. Over to you, Gail.
Hi, thank you so much, Beth, for the honor to moderate this incredible discussion. Gail Galusha, I am the Director of Enterprise AI Data and Analytics for the Office of the New York State Attorney General. I'm so grateful to be here to moderate this. I'm going to have us go around and introduce ourselves, quick our name and our title. I'll call you, so I'm going to go in order. Whitney, can you start?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Whitney Daniels, Senior Advisor to Governor Katie Hobbs, and I work outside of the Office of Strategic Initiatives, where we focus on emerging technology, workforce development, and education.
Great. Rebecca?
Hi, I'm Rebecca. Aloha, I'm Rebecca Kai. I'm the Chief Data Officer for the state of Hawaii. We're part of the Enterprise Technology Services. Thank you.
All right, great. Nikhil?
Hey everyone, I'm Nikhil Deshpande. I'm Chief AI and Digital Officer with this great state of Georgia. I work out of the Georgia Technology Authority.
Great. Christian?
Hello everyone, I'm Christian Napier. I'm the Director of AI for the Utah Division of Technology Services, and we are the centralized IT shop for the state and responsible for overseeing the implementation of AI throughout state executive branch agencies.
Great. And one more introduction. Beth, can you join?
I should have introduced myself. In addition to being the founder of Innovate US, I am also the Chief AI Strategist for the state of New Jersey.
Great, great. So I don't want to take too much time. I want to get right into this because we have a lot of great questions and I hope a lot of conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off following our learning goals and what was in the description. And I'm going to call on one person first, and then please, everyone else jump in. This is not just a one person question. So to start, I want to start with governance actions, what the session is all about. So my first question, I'm going to direct it first to you, Whitney, and then everyone else can jump in. What significant AI governance action or process standard or guardrail, which is what governance means, what action did your state take in 2025? Whether it was a new framework, a policy, a pilot, whatever that may be. And what was your intended outcome?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. We took a couple of major steps here in 2025 under Governor Hobbs' leadership. The first two major actions that we developed was our Office of Digital Solutions and also to our State Data Analytics Office with the Arizona Department of Administration. Mainly because we wanted to also to implement our long-term strategy to provide digital access across the state of Arizona to all four corners. And with this office, we also too started to do peer-to-peer practice groups, really partner with our state agencies to learn not only what the issues are within their state agencies, but how we can better deliver services. So really, really powerful and incredible work we did with those two offices, and also to making sure that when it comes to data and analytics from the state perspective, that we're of course upholding public trust and looking at innovative ways of how we can have our state agencies have that collective impact model and teaming up and working together to have the most impact for our state. In conjunction with that, we also too stood up the first ever state AI steering committee with over 150 applications from experts within the state, representing municipalities, counties, towns, industry, academia, and it was really difficult for us to narrow down those who sit on the committee because we wanted to make sure that as we are bringing forth good policy, that it is for the people of Arizona, so Arizona can see AI's full potential and really have it be a co-governance model in recommendations that we provide for the governor. Since our inception from May, we have started to finalize our policy recommendations and we'll move forward with the community and stakeholder engagement process to get that feedback to have a report delivered for later this year. So I'm really excited for that work. And it's really anchored in guiding principles and values in a declaration for the state of Arizona of how we develop and deploy AI in Arizona.
Somebody else, Rebecca, do you have any to add, or Nikhil?
Sure, yeah. Excuse me. We published the AI acceptable use policies last year. And also we had a data task force. We expanded to data and AI task force. We also established a data and AI governance working group with every single agency participation to clearly define roles and responsibilities of IT, the AI office, data and AI office we have in the IT organization, and also departments and business users. It takes the whole village to ensure the governance of AI, same as data. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone has responsibilities in it. We also did a lot of training last year. It's last year now, 2025.
And was that, Rebecca, was that training for the employees or was it open to everybody like Innovate US does?
We had offered some literacy training on our website, targeting our employees, government employees, but it's on the data.hawaii.gov. Everyone can have access to it. We partnered with Google to provide some AI literacy training, but that one has to have a government email address in order to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
We're also in conversation with Innovate US to provide their training. Yeah.
Yeah, New York is embracing Innovate US as well. Nikhil, Christian, or Beth, do you want to jump in before I move on?
Yeah, sure. So very similar. We had put together the AI program in 24, but 25 really kind of like saw it mature. So from a governance perspective, from an actual innovation standpoint, and also training. So the advisory council that we had formed, like we worked on creating a few standards and some policies, such as like procurement, understanding of AI tool industry partners, we went through a procurement to have a set of 19 partners that work with us in our lab. I guess, we had like little under 100 applicants. So it was a good way for us to analyze, like, how do we qualify them, and in an effort to pre-qualify for them to actually be our partners to work with us within the lab. And then on the training front of it, of course, partnering with Innovate US, we rolled out our training to state agencies as a starting point. And now we are working at also expanding that to local governments as well. And we have tied that to some of the tools that we have actually offered to our agencies. So we make sure like they go through that training first before they can actually get, those tools to be used. So yeah, there's a lot of work that happened in 25, but really kind of like what we did was we embedded the governance pretty closely and deeply with the actual day-to-day pilots that we're working on.
I'll just add on the state of Utah side of things. We've done some similar things as well. Established in 2025 AI governance group. We revised our generative AI policy in August of 2025. I'm about to say this year. And we also established a framework for AI risk assessment, which we started implementing in March. We actually created an open source automated AI risk assessment solution because we were getting a lot of requests for AI risk assessments, and they're time consuming, laborious to do. So those are some of the things, in addition to some of the things that others have shared that we've been working on. And I'm happy to share the link to the open source automated assessment. I'll try to find it during our meeting here and put it in the chat or something.
I was
But we'll
going to
make it
say, I'm
available.
definitely reaching out to you. I definitely want that link. So please don't forget that, or I'll reach out to you. Beth, how
So
about you? Do you want to talk about New
Sure.
Jersey?
Sure, I'll be brief. We also established AI leads in every agency, so we went beyond sort of having the likes of us to now trying to replicate more of us in every agency, number one, and to convene that group to try to teach and learn from one another. The Office of Innovation, of which I'm a part, also set up office hours effectively, where we offered coaching and help to agency teams building product. And really, so there's a lot to talk about in terms of exciting use cases. We also revised our policy again to very firmly embrace the use of generative AI, which we supply to people at the desktop to encourage them to use the tools that we make available to them, but very much to encourage people to use the tools and to mandate that they get trained before they use the tools that we're paying for. So I think just expansion of a lot of what was started in the year before, but doubling down on access, use, and training above all, and lots of activity in terms of that, hopefully blossoming into things that are getting developed that have benefits for residents.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm hearing policies, I'm hearing frameworks, training, risk assessments across the board. So here we go into highlighting what worked with all of this work that's been done. Nikhil, you and I had a conversation a bit ago about a AI initiative from 2025 that we felt delivered real results. Can you talk about that, and then we'll have other people talk about what AI initiative they had great success with after implementing all these governance strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. So really kind of like one of the biggest wins that we saw was just as a culture of the state moving from experimentation to more like a repeatable practice. And we saw the overall appetite to experiment and to try new things and to be open to changing processes a lot better. But we went from sort of kind of having a conversation about like, is AI allowed, or is AI okay? Or, have even just using the generic term AI to more sort of like understanding under what conditions does this create value, right? So pretty much like last year, everyone just was an AI shop. Like anyone who came and talked to us and pitched us a product or a service was pretty much embedded with AI. So the Horizons lab model that we put together, that really helped us like sort of like force that clarity in that early conversation with our agencies, where we started off with like a very clear statement of need. It's no longer just to kind of drive a conversation from a technology perspective, but we wanted to make sure that we had business teams, we had, non-technical teams at the table while we were having that conversations. And we started looking at time box pilots, like what does success mean in those circumstances? And while we're doing that, like how can we have governance that is built in instead of just sort of like bolted on or like a gate at some point? So that change in the mindset and in the approach was really something that we sort of like saw, where like pairing policy reviews or pairing like these hands-on pilots within the actual conversations of what business teams are trying to achieve was really where we saw where agencies were moving a lot faster, more confidently. The good part was that our council was pretty heavily involved also in the discussions of what our pilot projects were. So it wasn't just like a isolated effort of them working on the governance and putting together the standards, policies, guidelines, and then sort of like in a hands-off state. But as we were looking at what are some of these pilots that we are going to be working on, governance almost sort of like became a service instead of a gate. So that was very helpful. And then, of course, like anything that we learned from these pilots or from just the changing patterns, we swivel chaired and embedded that in our training curriculum. So I think just kind of like keeping that track going and trying to reach out to agencies. Beth mentioned about creating champions across agencies. I mean, that's something we started focusing on as at least like a concept or a pilot for. We want people from agencies eventually to take ownership of this, because we can be at every discussion and figuring out like a platform for those champions to be embedded within our centralized AI team. I think that was kind of like really something that as a model, we felt like got traction, and we're going to be leveraging on that this year.
Great. Anyone else want to share a great win from 2025?
Well, I'll share a sort of, it's an indirect win in some sense. The Office of Innovation in New Jersey was this week, some of you may have read that the governor signed legislation to create a new independent authority called the Innovation Authority, which means that the Office of Innovation will now continue into the term of the new governor, who was just elected. Mikey Sherrill will be appointed later this month. Inaugurated, later this month, which means continuity for the work around both innovation and AI, which I'm excited about. The recognition that this is not a political topic. It's both something of importance to senior leadership and needs to be part of the cabinet in senior leadership. But at the same time is not political, because we're here to make the lives of residents better with new technology. So that's being recognized by creating something that can survive across political terms. So something a little different, but hopefully important for the ongoing work that we've been doing.
I'd say from the state of Utah perspective, in 2025, we rolled out Gemini for Google Workspace. It was opt-in for state agencies, so we didn't make it available to everybody all at once. We just allowed it to happen when agencies were ready. That was launched in February of 2025. And by July of 2025, just about all agencies, with a few small agency exceptions, had opted in some way, shape, or form. And we currently have about 10,000 active Gemini users in the state. We have 22,000 employees active, meaning that they've used it once in the last 28 calendar days. We conducted a survey late summer, early fall, to gauge impact. And out of those, at that time, is around 9,000 people. About a third of them replied to the survey. And if we extrapolate those results out to the population of active Gemini users, they're reporting that they're saving collectively about 12,000 hours a week or 50,000 hours a month by using these AI tools. And so we have a long way to go to continue to increase adoption, but I think that was a good win for us, getting that rolled out and making it available to all of our employees.
Yeah, and I love the KPIs and the metrics you attach. No, we can't just roll out a tool. We have to see what the impact is and if people like it, both the qualitative and the qualitative metrics. Rebecca, were you going to jump in and say
Yeah,
something?
it's similar to what Christian mentioned. What I see is the adoption of Gemini or Copilot type of tools to help government worker in their daily life to improve efficiency. Yeah, that helps on the overall AI adoption. So people start seeing their own, document generation, speech preparation, small successes there. They build confidence in people to adopt AI.
Great. Whitney?
Yes, along the same lines of counterparts in Utah, we have seen an increase of Gemini usage across state agencies and also to piloting Notebook as well with a small group of employees for to get them comfortable and familiar with the tools. And then also too, we created a questionnaire and started to talk to different agencies on what their business needs are, whether it's through efficiency, productivity, and encouraging them to also to be curious about finding various different tools to launch pilot programs and projects as well. So that is something that we started in the latter part of 2025.
Wonderful. So we can't just talk about all the positive, right? So if anybody wants to jump in and just give us a little bit of information on what maybe didn't work, right? What we have we hear the term pilot purgatory. We hear the pilots don't often get off the ground. Even if the governance was intact and great, does anybody want to share a struggle that they had or something that that didn't work right away?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. So I touched on this a little bit earlier. We launched this AI factory in March of 2025. Uh, we have a small team, myself and two engineers. I joined the state government in March of 2024. My team joined in September and October of 2024, all new to state government. So we created this thing and we were super enthusiastic about it. And then we launched it and we started seeing what you just talked about. Some pilots that weren't necessarily driving or driven by business value, more by curiosity. Things getting stuck in pilot for a long time. And so we had to kind of reassess, like, well, what's going on here? And there were a few reasons for that. One, um, we didn't do a very good job of integrating ourselves into the agency IT team's planning. So even though we're a centralized IT shop, every agency has its own IT staff, and we run scaled agile, so safe. And the folks on the agency IT teams weren't assigning resources or project managers to these pilot projects, and so they weren't being included in their quarterly planning or in their sprint planning, and so that was one reason that we were running into challenges. And then when we figured that out, when we started including it, we realized that the agency IT teams were so overwhelmed already with projects that some of these AI pilots just they didn't take a high priority. And so it would take them a long time, and still taking a long time, getting stuck in that pilot purgatory, like you said, Gail. Another thing was there's a lot of interest in these tools. So it's not like migrating from on-prem to cloud where you had to take agencies and just drag them, into the new era. These people want to implement these things, but they don't really understand the total cost of ownership. And vendors are often very generous with providing credits or doing free pilots, and that garners a lot of interest. And then you do the thing and realize there's actually no money to roll this out. We don't have the funds. And so, okay, we're going to have to wait, and they're going to have to see if they can get some appropriation from the legislature when they're going into session here starting next week. And so that just delays things further. So been a variety of things. Another thing I'd mention is particularly with the hyperscaler type of solutions, the platforms are changing so rapidly and the business models are changing so rapidly that it's been difficult for us to keep up. And one example that I have is we had an agency that wanted to create some type of a tourism chatbot on their site, and there was a company in the market that was doing this kind of thing, and but there were some privacy concerns about like who owns the data and so on and so forth. And so we looked into, can we build this solution in-house? As it doesn't seem like it's overly complex. Well, we could, but the cost of the APIs was so expensive that it didn't make sense for the agency to do it. And so they just stopped. And 6 months later, the tool set completely changed, and now we can build something in a much more cost-effective way than we could do it 6 months ago. And we just kind of stumbled on something. So now we're trying to kick it up again. But keeping up with all these changes also been a bit of a challenge for us. And so I think that technology holds tremendous promise, and I do think that it can bring a lot of efficiency to government, but there are hurdles that we're trying to overcome. It's not been an easy journey by any stretch.
Right. So before I move on to anyone else jumping in on the what didn't work and the challenges, basically the navigating challenges part of our session. I'm still fairly new at the Attorney General's office, but across New York State, I have seen a lot of what you just described, Christian: financial resources that are limited, staff resources, time. What about change management? What about the people side? What about the embracing AI? How many, if you guys could jump in and give me another thing about, what challenges you've had, and talking about getting people to buy in and getting people to embrace AI and trying to do this. Beth or Rebecca, could we start with one of you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think I want to echo everything Christian mentioned. It's just so true. One thing that prevent people from adopting AI is the bandwidth. People are already busy. Yeah, they just don't have time to do it. Hawaii, we are overall about 20% short of resources across all the agencies. So that's especially challenging for us. And we do offer trainings, but people need to have time to take it and to take all the trainings. And some of the trainings take a lot of time. So we try to have the short videos. Yeah. And we do have people, a lot of change leaders on AI. Like Christian mentioned, people want to adopt it, want to change it. But it could be delayed by, bandwidth issue. People are not having availability, not having bandwidth to work on this. Yeah. And I think, offer training. We started with change leader on pilots, but pilots get delayed because of the people's availability. Yeah, those are the challenges we see that would prevent us of rolling out AI in the.
Right.
Yeah.
And talking about the trainings, I mean, nobody better to ask than Beth, right, with Innovate US. So, using AI literacy and, upskilling our employees to help with this, the change management, and trying to get people to buy into using AI. One question I have for you, Beth, too, is do you feel you've provided so many great sessions, this included. I thank you for all the sessions you've given. Do you feel that there's any gaps? Like, where do you feel that we may have gaps with our training, not with Innovate US, but across what you've seen across other states?
Innovate US is a small but mighty team, so there are limits to what we do. The team does what they do very, very well. So thanks very much to people like Agata and Eileen who helped to make these sessions happen. But there is so much more that we could be doing. So I just want to remind people that this is a peer-to-peer learning community, and we depend on the likes of you and all the people here who are volunteering their time to share their expertise. And I want to just encourage people who are in the audience to do that, because chances are there's something that you've done or learned, some bureaucracy hack you've engaged in, whether it's about AI or something else. And if you figured out how to do it, I'm sure someone else is facing the same problem. Just to echo, the sort of we're all nodding as Christian is talking and Rebecca's talking, going, yeah, and that's why we're here, is to share that learning. So that said, let me more specifically answer the question, is that even when there's content, and I'm sitting in an office here at the Harvard Bloomberg City Leadership Program, where they provide tons of training for cities rather than states. I came to a training myself today. Uptake and awareness is still very difficult. I mean, there are issues about just time and people having time, but I'm finding that just people knowing about the opportunity, because in the public sector, especially at the state level, we haven't had a significant investment in learning. Learning is generally something that is that dreaded sexual harassment video. I say dreaded because we've watched the same video, 10 years in a row, not because it's not important, but we've all seen it before, or something like it. So getting out the word is challenging, and there is a disconnect between sometimes those of us who run AI and the people maybe who are in labor or civil service or learning or communications, or who have the ear of people in various audiences. So the one thing I would just say is that, it'd be working with agency leaders, working with communications leaders, working with civil service or learning. And again, it depends on the jurisdiction, how things are organized, just to help get out the word, is really, really important. And it's something we have invested in, both through communicating through our Civil Service Commission, but the Office of Innovation itself has also built up mailing lists, both internal to government and external with residents, something we did during COVID. And it allows us to try to share some of these learning opportunities. So I think I just wouldn't underestimate that it's really just an issue of awareness and communication. The content actually is quite easy to create because there's so many experts out there in our audience who have tried and done interesting things. And we rely on the likes of you to come and share what's working. And we want to do more of that.
Love that. Also, to acknowledge Archie in the chat box, he talked about environmental impacts. I've heard that a lot over the last few years about wanting to learn more about that and how they can reduce the effects on the environment. I do hear a lot about that.
We're doing a workshop series on environmental impacts. Because we get this request so much, we will put it in the chat.
Whitney, did you want to add something before I move on to the next question?
Yes, echoing everything that these wonderful and amazing panelists have said. I think also too, one of the gaps, especially from where I sit, is, the connection from the macro impacts, right? When we talk about workforce disruption and displacement that will happen, we talk about environmental impacts as well, especially here specifically in Arizona. We think through water resources, energy, and things of that nature. So really, not only how are employees or state employees learning how to use these tools, becoming fluent in these tools and comfortable and confident in these tools, but once we start to use this tool, right, what is the societal impacts? And what are the policy changes that need to be made to make sure that everyone can come along in this fantastic ride? I think that is something that I struggle with day to day, to find practical solutions, pragmatic solutions, and then also to explaining what AI is. Here, in Arizona, or even among my colleagues, there's such a wide spectrum of people using AI or feeling confident about AI, especially in the public sector. It's always that scrutiny of making sure we are upstanding and continuing public trust and being good stewards of Arizona's data. So it's all of these things from a macro level. What are the policy recommendations on a societal front, whether it's through, things from elections, democracy, environmental concerns, workforce disruption and displacement, just to make sure everyone is moving along as we continue to be innovative and use these tools.
Wonderful. Please, everybody, look at the chat. Aguita just put in there what Innovate US will be offering regarding this topic, environmental impacts. Also, love the whole literacy involving data. I love that. I love the data. I love the, the buy-in, getting everyone involved. So to jump off of our challenges, right? I'm going back to the staff resources, the money resources, the all that, just to go into more persistent concerns and emerging issues. Now we're moving forward and looking into 2026, right? Maybe some things we saw in 2025 and what we need to address moving forward. One topic I've heard a lot about over the last 2 or 3 years in New York is vendor management. Right? What do we do when we purchase a tool and AI feature capabilities are added after? What do we do if it's native to the tools and we don't really know about it? Or even the question of if we buy a product, are the owners of the product or are their staff using AI that we need to know about? So here's a question. I'd like to start with Christian. How are you handling how are you handling vendors who add AI capabilities, like I said, post? And has your approach to vendor oversight evolved, or will it evolve going into 2026?
Man, it's a big challenge, and I can't pretend that we've got our arms wrapped around this thing. Uh, so, just a couple of things that I'll highlight, and I'm just kind of riffing here. I mentioned that we're a Google shop. So, when we went through the process to get Gemini for Google Workspace approved, we did our AI risk assessment, we did a privacy impact assessment, we did a security assessment, we did a lot of things, and then we got it approved. What we weren't necessarily prepared for was the constant release of new features, not knowing whether those features were also compliant with all the other stuff. So, uh, Google came out and said, okay, this FedRAMP high, and I'm not doing this to pick on Google or anything. I'm just using it as an example, right? So, all right, we've got FedRAMP high, we're HIPAA compliant, this, that, and the other. And you go through the process and you do the thing. Then Google releases a tool like Google AI Studio. This is a really cool tool. We look at the tool, it gets out there, people start using it. Then we look at it and we're like, actually, the terms and conditions for Google AI Studio are not the same and conditions as for Vertex AI or for the regular Gemini for Google Workspace, and we ended up having to disable it. So it taught us an important lesson that even if we have a vendor who has an approved set of tools, as they introduce new things, we need to be looking at those new things to make sure that the new things are also compliant. And if they're not, then we need to shut it off, right? Another example that we learned the hard way, even in a compliance situation, was with Google Meet. So Google Meet has a feature that automatically will allow you to summarize, take notes of a meeting and share those notes. It automatically shares those notes with anybody who's invited on the meeting. Well, we had a situation where a panel was conducting a job interview with a candidate. They had this feature on. The candidate left. They started talking about the candidate. The candidate ended up getting notes about the things that they said about the person. We ended up having to disable the feature because it was so risky. And so this is really hard to do. It's really hard to put in place, systematic controls to say, okay, if we have a vendor who's already approved, that has an approved list of tools, they add new features, sometimes they don't tell you about the things. You just open it up and one day there it is. And so I don't know if we've got a good answer. What we have done is uh, we try to keep abreast of I'm not just centered on Google here, but any vendor, making sure that we're looking at their blogs when they release new features and so on and so forth to see if they have AI things. We've tried to create some capabilities to kind of go out and scrape some of this stuff for some of the vendors, but it's hard It's hard to do because we have so many applications. So it is a big focus of ours in 2026. I won't pretend to say that we have it nailed down. Uh, we're 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 in the middle of dealing with it.
Yeah, I love that, Christian. And you said, talking about when they add new things and not knowing, how do we get them to tell us, right? Can we force them to tell us? Can anyone else jump in, maybe Beth or Nikhil or Whitney, and are you struggling with this as well? Or do you have policies or procedures or guidelines that you've implemented to try to address this?
Yeah, sure. Again, in Georgia, we have done something similar with ChatGPT, and absolutely agree with Christian's, kind of sorry that happened. And it's like one of the things why, we literally just advocated to have teams justify why we need that feature before we can open it, because we have enterprise ChatGPT, and we have locked down a lot of like the API calls and stuff, and then we're working with individual agencies to really kind of work with them on making sure like why is it that you need it before we can just say it's open to everyone. Big part of that also is ongoing. Just we have office hours for people to just come and ask questions, and how does this thing work? How does that thing work? Like, of course, like everyone knows, not to upload things that, are sensitive, but we've had some situations where someone said like, whoops, I'm sorry, I didn't realize this data was a part of this PDF. Now it's there. What do we do? The good part is that we have an enterprise version. We are not it's using the public version, right? So we did have those processes in place. But yeah, I think that the challenge is real, and I don't think any of us could really say like we got it. We are all struggling with it because like as new things are being introduced and as new features are being rolled out, like one of the biggest challenges that we are facing is just trying to get a sense of like what AI tools people are using beyond the ones that we have actually allowed them to, right? So something that we are also looking at is just what can we use just as a pure governance tool to just get like a real accountable kind of number of like people just downloading things on their phones. And like we can only advise per the governance that we have put in place, but at some point we're really going to have a way for us to lock things down. So yeah, I think 2026 is going to be very much of a dedicated effort to making sure that we have certain folks who are going to be like keeping their finger on the pulse on like how these things are advancing and how do we just kind of keep up with our governance with all the changing features that have been launched.
Yeah, I love how you touched on the private versus public models. I think that is really key in understanding the risks of uploading to the public models versus the private. Yeah, that's really great. And of course, touching on shadow AI. Does anybody else have anything to add? Beth, can you add?
Oh, I would just say, I mean, this is also why we have an AI, a New Jersey AI assistant, and that is the toolkit you are required to use. It offers access to multiple models for people, but it's a secure environment, a more secure environment. That said, I just want to remind all of us that the kind of thing that Christian talked about also happened with the phone before. The forgetting to hang up the phone, the thinking the person was on hold, and then you're still talking. Thankfully, this has not happened to me, but I know other people it's happened to where they forgot to hang up the phone and they were still connected. So we don't want to overly panic. And which is why it's so helpful to have kind of forums for learning. And the more that we can create with our own teams, opportunities to ask questions and to make clear that no question is a stupid question. Here in this forum, we're adding a weekly, what we're calling our prompting lab. Christian is one of our hosts for that, where we're just creating a space for people to come and share the problems they're working through, effectively like office hours. But I think, at whatever team we work in, the chance to just create a space where people can say, hey, this is what works, this is what doesn't, here's, et cetera. Because these things do change. It's why every time I struggle when I make the introduction, I try to tell people where the Q&A button is. Every time I turn on Zoom, it's in a different place. because the features just keep changing, which is a good thing, and it's not something to panic about, but it does require some shared learning, and that we create the space for this as we all learn together what these new tools can do.
Love that, Beth. I love the whole hot mic thing. Yeah, I think we've all experienced the hot mic. And also, we could also say the internet, right? Like sharing things on the internet. I remember years ago teaching about that as well. I love that about keeping things in perspective and putting
Reply
controls.
all.
Yeah,
Reply all is a dangerous button.
and putting controls into place, because the majority of the people, I think mostly all that I've met, do not want to do anything wrong. They don't. And sometimes the controls helps them not do that. Love that. So I know we're running a little short on time. Oh, go ahead, Christian.
I was just to say very quickly, just turning lemons into lemonade type of story here. So when we did the automated AI risk assessment, because it was taking us a lot of time, we thought, hey, um, could could we could we could we do something broader to help procurement, not just with AI, but procurement has to do a lot of review of contracts against various parts of the Utah code, right? To make sure whether it's indemnification clauses or jurisdiction or those kind of things, right? So we actually built a tool, we're piloting it now for our procurement to basically feed the contracts and all of the other documentation parts of code, the administrative rules, et cetera, to very quickly assess whether contracts are complying with the code. And that is really exciting for us because it takes a human a long time to go through those things and do that analysis. And so I think that's kind of a happy outcome of some of the challenges that we faced is like, hey, how can we bring AI to the table? Invite AI to the party to help us solve some of these challenges.
I love that. Also, how can we embrace, how can we bring it to the table? And I like the positive spin with what Beth said too. So one of the questions, two questions left. One that I really want to squeeze them in. One question is, we talked about what scares us, right? What may be keeping us up at night, shadow AI and unauthorized AI. But what are you really excited about for 2026? I know there's a lot of terms like the vibe coding, the agentic AI. What excites you moving into 2026? Maybe we could start with Nikhil on this one, and then have you each join in.
Yeah, I think just the overall like maturity that I'm seeing across folks for embracing AI, and starting out, people were just like very resistant in using it. But as we have been working with them, showing them possibilities, and just with a constant sort of kind of, hand-holding way of leading them, I do see where we'll see a lot more like efficiency now getting within our workforce. And the big part of that is just that, people are now seeing this as not just an IT thing. AI is not just IT. I mean, people are like seeing themselves. This is how it's going to, help me, affect me. People have stopped asking, or at least like the concerns of, will AI take my job? Like, I have not had that question asked to me in the last few months. I do like a regular kind of lunch and learn across many agencies and just like answer any questions. So I'm that is very exciting. The other part is also that we're seeing some really advanced ways of like agentic AI and some of these technologies that could truly affect a lot of the things that we are doing. And as Rebecca mentioned earlier, like Georgia is no different. Like we are also struggling with the workforce. Like for us, the concern is not just about like AI replacing people, like we're actually losing people, and it's really hard to find people. So AI augmenting the existing workforce is actually very welcomed. So with that, I feel like there's a lot that we can be doing. So yeah, the lab is really kind of helping a lot of our agencies, and eventually we want to expand that beyond the state government to local government as well. But that's really kind of like where we are doing a lot of these, proving grounds, concept validations and stuff. not at this point worrying about, a pilot purgatory, because like it's fine, but it's important to kind of go through those and to be able to at least like make a conscious decision about like, well, we can hold on to this versus what we can move forward to production.
Right. And what a great point to jump again off of Christian's points about staff resources being limited and also being overwhelmed, right? How can we have AI help them because we're so short-staffed? Anybody else want to talk about what they're excited about coming in 2026?
I'll just quickly say the rapid advancement in the quality and capability of the tools. You know, I remember when we started the Gemini thing, using Google Slides and Gemini was just a non-starter. The image generation was so bad, and that hurt adoption because people try a tool and it doesn't work, and they're like, "This is terrible." And now it is great. Like I use it all the time in slides, and it's a huge time saver. And so I'm really excited about the continuing improvement in the tools that are available to our people, because I think that will continue to drive and accelerate adoption, in addition to all the other cool stuff that Nikhil was talking about. And I'm also super excited for Innovate US, because we finally got the single sign-on enabled uh, in December for Innovate US, and we launched it last month to employees, and so super excited to introduce that as well. So I got to put a plug in there for Beth.
Great. Rebecca, I'm going to have you answer, and then we have a question from Dennis, but please tell me what you're excited about for 2026. If you tell me.
Yeah, I'm very excited about how AI can improve efficiency and reduce cost for the traditional projects, like ERP projects. A lot of process can be automated using AI, and we can see cost saving across the board. I would love to see that. And for example, consulting. If we need 10 consultants now to do the job, in the future, maybe we need only 2. So I'm excited to see this across the board overall improvement. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Dennis, can you unmute
Gail, I
and
just
ask
want to
your
point
question?
out we have a long list of questions waiting in the Q&A.
Yeah, sure. I'll just have 10 seconds. What I'm looking into is to get, I don't see why you can't see my face, but anyway, I'm looking into for 2026 the cost of implementation of the agent digital, which will really bring a lot of efficiency, provided it could be cost effective, so you're not credits on operation. That's it.
Okay, so we do have some, definitely, like Beth said, some Q&A in here. Let me see a couple. If we can't answer all, hopefully we can get to you, Beth, with some of these. Let's see. Do you have one, Beth, that you saw that you'd like to address right away?
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I think, Dennis, your mic sort of went out, which is why I don't know if anybody heard the question well enough. So you might want to type it if you can, or if somebody heard it, they might want to take the question. I think there was such a wealth of things in there. There was a question about sort of communication about AI governance within an organization, and lesson learned from sort of how you're getting out the word about AI governance. And that's where I come back to this idea that both within agencies, there are leadership teams getting organized around AI, or a point person on AI. And in each agency, then that person is really in charge of getting out the word about what the policy is, number one. Number two, when we provide AI access, we're combining it with training about the policy as well as about how to use AI. And one of the things that Innovate US does and has done with a lot of partners is create what we often call Module 0, which is a state will do a video about what their policy is, because sometimes even getting people to read a page and digest it is difficult. Having a video where somebody whom you trust says, hey, here's what our policy is, here's whom you should ask, here's who to come to for questions before then any training, whether it's training about how to use AI or product-based training from a vendor or from somewhere else, that can often be really helpful. So I would just encourage people to do it in multiple modes, not just a bureaucratic piece of PDF, but to think about using a video or a newsletter or other live opportunities to get out the word.
Great. There's one in here specifically for you, Rebecca, and it says, for Rebecca and other speakers, do you invite external companies for AI training or have in-house AI expert trainings?
You mean vendors?
Or vendors or in-house AI expert trainers?
Yeah, we do invite vendors to come in to give us training. We invite all vendors to come in. They give us a quantum training, they give us AI training. But vendor tools are specific to the tools, to the tool sets they have a lot of times. Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's see, Beth, if you want to see if there's any other questions in here we could address with the limited time. Let's see.
I'll invite I think all of us can see the Q&A. So if anybody wants to take one, there's a question I saw that I'm going to respond to in the chat. So if anybody else sees something in the Q&A that you want to respond to, can you all see it?
This one I like if we could talk about while you're responding. With respect to public administration outcomes, what initiatives have been most impactful to your public sector workforce? How do you assess and measure those outcomes? I like that. Yeah. Anyone want to take that one?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nikhil.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I already talked about the survey that we did of Gemini users. So, surveying people is one way to get that. I we had an interesting session with Gartner and addressing the challenges of measuring ROI on these things, and their view, which I think actually makes sense, is when it comes to the office productivity type of AI usage, which most of us are familiar with, that ROI is a difficult thing to calculate. So it's really about ROE, which return on employee, and looking at the impact on them from a time savings perspective, from quality of work perspective. And the primary mechanism to gather that information is through surveys. It's really hard to kind of measure it more than that, at least when it comes to like the office productivity stuff.
Yeah, I like the qualitative part of the surveys too about, if they like it basically and how much time they feel it saves. I know a lot of products have dashboards as well, like what is the usage, right? How often are they using it? What apps are they using it in maybe? Or, kind of assessing how they're using it and how long they're using it. And then putting that together with the qualitative survey to say they're using it now, are they liking it, right? And what problems do you see coming from that? That's great. So here's one question. Again, this is a lot of things I hear about. Whitney, I know you talked about this. I've heard a lot about the environmental effects of AI and mostly about the negative effects. Is this accurate? If so, what can we do to mitigate these effects?
Yeah, here in Arizona, with our Office of Resiliency, which is our environmental arm that focus on policy solutions. We also too have cultivated a task force to specifically address areas within expanding data centers interests and balancing those environmental impacts. I think what works well here for Arizona is building that co-governance with community engagement, and also to keeping eyes on the pulse of what policy solutions through whatever measures, whether it's legislatively, that we can find common ground to move forward. It is my hope that as we continue to use this emerging technology, we'll have more policies forthcoming from other different institutions and think tanks to find what is best for those who will be highly impacted. But it definitely starts with making sure that those who are impacted have a seat at the table, and providing their lived experience for the best policy outcomes. And that's what we do here in Arizona, especially when we're working with our 22 federally recognized tribes and other communities. We want to make sure as we bring forth policy solutions or recommendations to solve problems that they're part of the conversation as well.
Very good. We had a question from Nathan, which I think this may have been earlier because we touched on the change management. But he did say, are there any lessons learned from your work so far with communicating AI governance?
And Gail,
and
I'm just going to interrupt for one moment to let people know that they can drop off. We promised people this would be an hour for busy professionals, but I think if folks want to stay on for longer, by all means, we can keep going a little bit. But we'll put some wrap-up links in the chat just for next workshops and other things. But Gail, I'll leave it to you to moderate this to conclusion as you would like.
Wonderful. Okay, let's just, I'll take a look at this one right now. And how you've approached change management when introducing new AI policies. I think this is a good one if somebody could take this one. And then